So what happens when you actually leave the British military, and how should you navigate it? What's up guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I know I've been dormant for a couple of months now. Things have been incredibly busy with the business. However, I'm not gonna make excuses. I'm gonna get straight into this video now. So most of my content, if you've ever followed me or ever watched a video in the past, is around how to get into the Royal Marines or the military, okay? I'm also aware there is a demographic of people who are in the forces who don't know how to navigate leaving. That is what this video is going to be about. So I'm going to use the Royal Marines as my point of reference throughout this video. So everything I say is going to be of reference to how it works in the Marines. It might be different for different services in different countries, etc. However, the Marines is the only point of reference I have. So I'm going to use that. So your minimum term of service in the Royal Marines is 4 years. That means you can do 3 years, put your notice to leave in, and you can leave on your 4-year point. Your notice period to leave is 12 months. However, you typically serve a little bit less than that due to your leave periods and your resettlement and all that sort of stuff. There is nuance in terms of how much resettlement you get and how much access to courses, how much money you get towards courses. I'm not gonna go through that because again, it's nuanced and there's not really much point in me specifically going through a scenario for you. What I am gonna do is give you 5 marching steps to get out of the military and into a good space. What a lot of people will do, and this is why they end up struggling on the outside and then rejoin, is they'll generally leave it until their last kind of 4 weeks to have a look at jobs and have a look at things to do, because that 12-month period tends to zip by like that. The reason the notice period is so long and 12 months is to give you time to get yourself ready for the outside world. So you as an individual need to identify something you want to do on the outside, something that takes your interest, something that you're qualified for, hopefully, or something that you can become qualified for. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I knew I wanted to get into coaching. I didn't really know what that looked like. And so I started to do a bit of research. This is on my 12-month point. So as soon as I put my notice in to leave, I was aware there was a clock ticking down of 12 months until I'd have to leave and be self-sustaining. So I started to do some research as to what I could do in the personal training or coaching world. And obviously the obvious start point for any coach is in-person PT. So I started to look around where I lived at home for PT jobs. One of the massive advantages with most industries, if you're coming out of the military, is they're going to give you some sort of time of day, whether that be an interview, whether that be just a conversation, because they know that you've been, certainly in the Marines, you've been disciplined, you can show up on time, you can be punctual, you can be reliable, all of those things that they look for in an employee, they kind of know because you've already been part of an elite organization. So again, I was lucky. I found a gym that was recruiting PTs. I applied online and got a call back. From that point forward, obviously I went through my interview process, etc. They gave me an option as to, do you want to start when you leave the services, or do you want to start a little bit earlier on and do a little bit of part-time work on the side? This was a conversation I had to have in my own brain in terms of, do I want to work basically 7 days a week, 5 days a week in the Marines and 2 days a week on the side in the gym, but have myself set up when I get out? Or do I want to leave it and then potentially someone swoops in, takes my role, etc. And there's that risk associated with that. I chose the former and decided to start working on weekends in the gym, building up my client base, making sure my face was known around the place and making sure that I had something to fall back on when I left. This is something you've got to swallow in terms of sometimes you might have to be working 7 days a week for the last 4 or 5 months of your service in the military just to set yourself up. Again, I was working Monday to Friday in the Marines. I would get back on a weekend and work Saturday, Sunday shifts in the gym, doing classes, cleaning, doing whatever I could do, okay, just to get myself known around the place, familiarise myself with the job. What that meant was, when I came out of the Marines months later, I had a little bit of a client base. I had sort of 5 or 6 clients that knew me, liked me, trusted me, etc. And I had experience in the role. Of course, I'd taken sessions before and done things like that before. However, in a civilian gym, it's very, very different when there's a specific way of doing things. The gym owner wants the things done in a certain way. So that's what I did. I then left having the ability to do the gym stuff. So your second thing to do is to get yourself qualified, of course, in the area that you want to go into. So if you identify PT, for example, PT qualifications, super easy to do online. If you want to be an insurance broker, okay, going and doing some courses, whatever, is going to make sense in that time that you've got. Typically, in your last year of service, it's going to be slower in terms of the tempo of your actual day-to-day job is going to be slower. giving you time to focus on these courses. So don't piss it away playing Xbox. Actually get yourself doing some of these things. So we've identified an industry. We've got our qualifications in that industry to make ourselves attractive to an employer. The next thing is to reach out. Again, people generally, from my experience in the military, are somewhat entitled and believe that they should be given a job because of what they've done, and that is probably right. However, that's not how the world works. So you do need to put yourself out there. You do need to go and email, ring, message people on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, LinkedIn, to get yourself about there, because it's a competitive market. Depending on where you're going and whatever industry it is you're kind of trying to pursue, it's going to be competitive. So you have to get your name out there. You have to go and sit with interviews. You have to do these things that you might not be willing to do, that they're quite intimidating. Also tied in with that is get your CV in order, all right? Make sure that you've got cover letters, make sure you've got just the nuts and bolts of applying for jobs. As I mentioned, what I did after getting qualified and getting my kind of job squared away is I started to do the work. So if you can, in any way, shape or form, if it's driving, for example, if it is at a gym that's open on the weekends, then you can definitely go and do that on the weekend. And a lot of people will lie to themselves and say, oh, well, I'm already working, so why am I gonna go and do extra work on the side? Well, what it does is put some money in your pocket to give you that little buffer, but it also, again, gives you that experience. And so when you go into the new job, typically you're going to be starting at the bottom. You already have some skin in the game and some experience to draw from to level you up faster. And therefore you can climb the ladder quicker and get to where you want to be in terms of pay. The fifth and final thing, and this came naturally to me, but doesn't for a lot of people, is to stay on top of your physical fitness. There's a couple of reasons for this. The big ones are that you have a structured routine when you're in the military. That's something that is pretty obvious, okay? Everything is detailed off for you. You know exactly what you do and when. When you leave the military, you then have a bit of a vacuum of structure, so you don't have anything to hold you accountable, anything to hold you to. There's nothing telling you when you've got to be up, when you've got to go for food, when you've got to do whatever. So having a structured phys routine that means, okay, on Monday I'm going to do this, on Tuesday I'm going to do this, on Wednesday I'm going to do this, gives you something to hold you to and gives you a ability to push and to progress yourself. So it gives you something to lean into, even if your occupation or your job isn't where it maybe wants to be at that stage. Maybe you're a bit lower down the pecking order than you wanted to be. Whatever it is, there's maybe not too many challenges at work because you're not quite in the industry you wanted to go into. Maybe you had to take a bridging job. At least leaning into physical activity gives you that challenge, gives you something back. It also pays into an identity that you have built from time in the forces of being physically robust, being someone who's physically reliable, and it continues that identity through. It is extremely important that you continue through your fitness, because what a lot of people will do is use it as an excuse because they're leaving, they no longer have to be fit for their job, and so they'll just let it fall off a cliff. Typically what happens with those people is they start to get into ultra marathons and stuff down the line, but why have the period of pain in the middle? Make sure you're continually being consistent. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be 3 to 5 days a week, whatever it needs to be, to keep you ticking over and keep you moving. And it just keeps you healthy and obviously the energy. We all know the benefits of physical activity, but in this specific context, because of the lack of structure you're about to go into, you need something that's underlying to give you something to hang on to. There's your 5 things, 5 marching steps. You're going to identify an industry, you're going to qualify yourself for the industry, and this can all be done on the military dime effectively and with the time you're going to get given by the forces. So it's nothing extra you're going to have to do. You're then going to go and put yourself out there, interviews, emailing people, making sure that your CV's in order, all of that sort of stuff. What we then need to do is start work. We actually need to start doing something on a weekend in time when you have time off. We need to start doing something. Something I actually had to do was have a conversation with my chain of command and go, look, I'm leaving in 5 or 6 months. There's no real point in me going on any of these over weekend trips and all that sort of stuff because I'm not getting much out of it. Can I have a little bit of a wave of the last 4 or 5 months to just focus on my weekend work so I can set myself up for when I get out of the military? You need to have those uncomfortable conversations with the people above you because they won't just look out for your best interests at all times. And finally, we need to stay on top of our physical fitness for obvious reasons. If you're in the position where you are in the military, maybe you've got your notice in, maybe it's not quite in yet because you don't really know what to do, I am 100% happy to take you through this process. It's something I've done to relative success. Okay, I've now built a business that allows me to have my own hours and have my freedom and make an impact, all of those kinds of things. If you're interested in doing the same thing and you're in the military just out of convenience now, then either drop me a message on Instagram or click the link below and apply for my one-to-one coaching, and we will go through this process together.